The king and queen led them onward, beyond the reef castle walls. A sprawling docking bay unfolded like a second city. Coral arches had been coaxed into docking slips where submarines and trade barges rested side by side. Ants in air pocket suits clattered across translucent walkways, hauling crates on their backs. Overhead, jellyfolk swam in the shapes of dolphins, penguins, and manta rays, luminous bodies glowing under the weight of tide bundles. The reef itself hummed with traffic, water tubes hissing with current, glowing signposts flickering in all directions, tides regulated like highways. Calm tilted her head back in wonder. Riot whistled low. Aunt Glad muttered something about ants with a better union than most miners. And Grandpa Fury? He stayed straight-backed, unimpressed. Then came the cave, 100-foot reef angled inward, plunging into a bottomless hole. The vaulted ceiling was pocketed with hundreds of bubbles, each anchored to platform balconies stacked in tiers across the walls. Some bubbles moored to trader subs and party cruises, their hatches half in the air, half submerged. Others had been transformed into attractions. A bubble nightclub, its floor trembling with bass. A comedy stage echoing with laughter. Food stalls selling sub-subs, hoagies with more seaweed than bread. Prize booths where squid shooting games splattered ink across transparent walls. And a sprawling ink arena where humans, ants, and jellyfolk alike waged playful war with bladders full of harmless ink. Ink balls sailed. Water slides wound between bubbles. A Ferris wheel spun slow, carrying guests toward the surface. A roller coaster rattled through the cavern mouth, vanishing into daylight above. At the cavern's heart, 4 quadrants divided the chaos. One for air balloons, rising and dipping in leisure rides back to the surface. One for submarines of every size and shape. One for humans, ants, and jellyfolk alike, a mingled square of markets and mingling. And one that was different, a sanctuary. The crowd surged with noise and color. Somewhere in the din, a booming announcer's voice echoed through the ink arena speakers. Open quote, "Welcome to the Cavern of Wonders, brought to you by BrainFire. Mac Movement. Don't forget to like and subscribe before the next round begins." Close quote. Aunt Glad groaned, pinching the bridge of her nose. Even under the sea, advertising survives. Riot, half shifting into a squid himself, muttered, "At least they're not running pre-rolls." Calm grinned, tapping her axe against the bubble glass. "Give it time, bro." Grandpa Fury only folded his arms, staring at the Ferris wheel with all the disdain in the world. Roller coasters, humph. Seen faster stomach aches on land. In the 4th quadrant, the chaos of attractions gave way to quiet water. The space had been converted into a sanctuary. Lion-backed turtles, tiger-backed turtles, even bear-backed turtles swam between long seagrass beds and dunes of pale sand. Their eggs lay clustered beneath round-the-clock watch, guarded fiercely by jellyfolk attendants. Calm gasped, eyes wide. Riot leaned close and whispered, "Episode 5, remember? Even the one Grandpa tossed aside found its way back here." And there it was, unmistakable, the shell of that turtle drifting through the weeds. They always followed the jellyfolk, but this time they hadn't just followed. This time they had claimed a corner of land for themselves. Tucked among the glowing cradles was more than just turtle nests. A nursery had been built for newborns of every kind, jellyfolk, humans, and hybrids alike. Lamps flickered softly in the water, mimicking dawn. A midwife's house welcomed mothers to stay through those first vulnerable weeks. The sight was tender, almost holy. Grandpa Fury crossed his arms and said nothing. His silence weighed heavier than his words ever could. The royals moved the group onward. The reef's docking bay unfolded like a second city, alive with barges unloading their cargo, ants in air pocket suits clattering across translucent walkways, and jellyfolk overhead glowing as they hauled goods between ships. The king was midway through a speech about traffic regulation systems when Aunt Glad slowed, her eyes snapping to a chemist's stall where colored flasks bubbled like captured storms. "Imported reagents? From the trenches? You didn't tell me you had supply chains this deep." Before anyone could answer, she was gone, already grilling the stall master about molecular breakdowns and hybrid coral fusions. The royals kept talking, practiced smiles never faltering. The rest of the family only realized 20 steps later that Aunt Glad wasn't behind them. The family had barely noticed Aunt Glad's absence when she returned, dragging a bulging satchel of reagents. Two scientist sharks trailed behind her, struggling under the weight of extra crates, eyes darting in every direction. Glad's tone was casual, as though hauling nervous predators into a royal tour was normal. They're helping me with supplies. Works out nicely, as long as we're quick before Nada wakes up. The sharks bobbed their heads in frantic agreement. One whispered just loud enough for the group to hear. We are Nada's workers now. She tells us what to build, bubble by bubble. Too many ideas. We are scared to say no. Glad smirked and gestured toward the king and queen at the head of the hall. If you're apologizing to anyone, it should be them. The sharks paled, fins twitching. They turned and bowed low before the rulers. Your Majesties, Shark One stammered. We are sorry for the haunted house, for frightening the young ones just to bleed them of ink. We thought it would work. Shark Two finished in a rush. The king loomed above them, immense and radiant, his body split in two halves of light, one pulsing crimson, the other blue-green, as though judgment itself swirled inside him. Ink from children, he said slowly, letting the words drip like anchors. The queen's ears glowed faint turquoise, her woolly rabbit shape shimmering soft with disappointment. Fear should never be a tool. The sharks quivered. We beg forgiveness. Then suddenly, the king flared bright white, his voice booming theatrical. But imagine it. A grand attraction. Halls of horror, stalked by mirror phantoms, doors that vanish behind you, shadows that whisper your name. He spread his arms like a conductor summoning lightning. A fictional monster, born from ink and mist to delight the masses. Who among us would not pay to be terrified in safety? The queen sighed, brushing a paw against his side with affectionate resignation. Dear, not every plan needs to be a stage. Grandpa Fury grunted from the back. Horror house, buffet line, same thing. Both end with someone sick. The plaza rippled with nervous laughter, the sharks backing away with visible relief. Aunt Glad tightened her grip on her satchel and muttered, Works out, for me anyway. The royals did not lash out. Instead, the queen's ears shimmered faint turquoise as she spoke softly. It may not have been wise, but sometimes it is good for the young to be scared, to learn not to be tricked into things too easily. The king's glow pulsed steady agreement. Yes, a painted fear is still a lesson, and better they face it in play than in shadow. The scientist sharks froze, then suddenly lit up, their fear gone in a rush. Their scales shimmered proud as kings of the sea, fins spread wide, voices carrying bold for the first time. The moment didn't last, but for a heartbeat, they looked like rulers of their own domain. Then came their offering. Your Majesties, Shark One said, our ink can do more than mark or scare. Watch. He pressed an ink circle onto the wall, dark as obsidian. Another dab spat into a circle on the floor flared to life. Between them, the water bent into a glowing arc. A tube of current stretched, shimmering. From the outside, it looked like a circle of water stamped into stone. From the inside, it felt like a looping racetrack that folded reality. Dive through one side, arc in a half circle, and burst out the other. The ants were the first to adapt. With bubble helmets and AirPods strapped to their feet, they clambered through the tunnels, marching sideways across ceilings or upside down along walls. Beside them, Jellyfolk darted like comets, weaving through the arcs in luminous spirals. A shared highway had been born. Ants where no ants should walk, Jellyfolk looping like fireworks, the whole space alive with traffic. The royals let the demonstration fade, leading the family onward. Not every pocket was formal. Some domes had been stitched into little marketplaces. A pair of human teenagers hunched at a cafe carved into reef stone, sipping kelp foam lattes through straws far too long. They looked bored. Only teenagers could ignore glowing water parades and jellyfolk weaving constellations across the ceiling. The message was clear. This wasn't just spectacle, it was infrastructure. Ants could trade goods. Humans could drink coffee beneath the sea. Jellyfolk could walk on water or dissolve into light, always in control. And as the tour pressed on, they rose, heading up toward the surface. The time they surfaced, Riot had made his choice. He pressed his will hard against the swirling shifts, body flickering through half a dozen creatures, eel, shrimp, even a gawky octopus, before finally locking into one form, a squat, bright strawberry frog. Calm doubled over laughing. Nice shade of pink, bro. But Riot didn't panic. He stood steady on webbed feet, breathing slow. The colors rippled but held. Controlled pink, he said through clenched teeth, pride and irritation mixing. Calm smirked. Yeah, controlled, until somebody orders dessert. The guide's voice cut through, carrying them forward across the upper terraces. And on your left, the constellation bears, guardians of the volcanic ridges. Notice their glowing pelts. Do not attempt to hug them. Calm leaned close to Riot. I could totally hug the cub. Riot croaked back. You'd get vaporized. Again. On their right, tourists gathered behind barricades to watch lion, tiger, bareback turtles crawl ashore. Hatchlings flailed toward the waves or plodded landward, choosing their fate beneath heavy guard. Visitors cheered, betting openly on which way each would go. The next marvel rose on the horizon, a lighthouse whose beam cut impossible colors through the water. Not just white or gold, but hues dredged from volcanic vents and trench fire. Violets like bruised sky, molten reds, teal streaks cracked like gemstones. Each sweep lit paths across neon arches and glowing retro streets. Beside it sprawled Moontown, a 1960s seaside fantasy rebuilt beneath the waves. Neon surfboard arches bent in pastel blues and pinks, reef bars pulsed like diners, and streetlights shimmered with light borrowed from places no human eye had ever seen. The royals beamed with pride. Calm, though, didn't notice the view. Her eyes locked on a shop sign across the way, yo-yo strings added to any weapon, guaranteed return. She clutched her three-headed axe, muttered, "About time," and darted off. Riot, now strutting in a borrowed bathrobe, flanked by 3 Jellyfolk attendants and hauling a crate that could only be the mirror armor, called after her. You're seriously gonna turn that thing into a fidget toy? But she was already gone into the neon crowd. Grandpa Fury grunted, arms crossed. You kids and your lava lamp, Moon. We already got Luma back. Closer than ever. Don't need a fake one. Groovy, man. The king and queen dimmed uneasily at his tone. Calm nearly choked laughing. Riot elbowed her into silence. Aunt Glad only sipped her drink, eyes rolling behind the rim. From there, the tour swept into Moontown proper. Lazy rivers spiraled into wave pools lined with neon bars, each glowing its own hue. Drinks foamed like they'd been tapped straight from the trench. It felt like Vegas colliding with Myrtle Beach, rebuilt by bioluminescent jellyfish. Concert archways bent overhead, neon surfboards doubling as acoustic amplifiers. High notes carried clean above the water, while bass lines rumbled deep below. The first interspecies concerts were already being booked. Surf and tide pools churned in perfect rhythm, entire artificial breaks pulsing with Jellyfolk beat patterns. Surfers carved choreographed contests under violet-green moonlight, balconies above crammed with cheering crowds and glowing cocktails. The king spread his arms with flourish, his colors swelling like stage lights. Moontown, music for the air, rhythm for the sea, harmony made visible. The queen brushed against him, ears trailing ribbons of turquoise light. You mean noisy and neon? But yes, harmony. Grandpa Fury grunted, unimpressed. Harmony's overrated. Looks like a boardwalk with a glow stick budget. The royals smiled tightly and swept them onward. The nursery district came next. Midwife houses rose at the border of water and air, their bubble walls pitched as sanctuaries for early childhood. New mothers stayed here for weeks, raising dual breathers who could live in both worlds. The guide gestured proudly. We raise heirs for both realms. Equal parts health claim, equal parts political flex. Then came the centerpiece of Jellyfolk nightlife, the Bubble Pearl Club. From outside, it glowed like a pearl suspended in the current, ringed by lazy rivers carrying guests past food stalls and luminous drink stations. Inside, upper levels circled pools rimmed with dancing platforms where humans, ants, and Jellyfolk silhouettes swayed together. Music throbbed, lights pulsed, bodies blurred into one luminous rhythm. The basement revealed glass floors and walls opening directly to the sea. Jellyfolk swam in radiant tendrils, weaving shapes and silhouettes until the whole chamber became a living disco. Grandpa Fury stopped at the threshold, unimpressed as ever. Seen it in the 570. You ever hit 5 points at any hour? Horrible. Same vibe. The royals stiffened, unused to comparisons with rural dive bars. But the family just chuckled, letting Grandpa's small-town jab hang in the neon haze. The king lifted both arms, glow rippling in waves across the crowd. His voice boomed like a carnival barker echoing through stone and current. Now, time for us to see what advancements have risen out of water, or as you land ones say, out in the open. Behold our stadium of currents. The gates opened, and the family stepped into a roaring arena. Where once it had been a quiet practice ground, now painted ink circles shimmered on every wall. One huge pool glowed at the center, linking them all. Jellyfolk launched through the loops in streaks of color, spiraling across the air like fireworks. Ants clambered sideways across walls and ceilings, their bubble packs puffing bursts of air as they flipped in dizzying zigzags. Humans splashed in with borrowed gear, most sputtering back out after a few laps, while the crowd pulsed scandal colors in amusement. Riot's frog-pink skin flickered as he tried to hold steady. He clenched his fists, locked his breathing, and managed to dive clean through one ink ring, emerging on the far side as a shimmering eel. A second loop later, he was a half-bat, half-squid tangle, before slamming back into frog form on the bleachers. Calm called across the din, deadpan. Nice control, bro. Pink's still your best look. The crowd laughed, not unkindly, their lights rippling at the spectacle of him. Aunt Glad scribbled notes furiously into a waterproof ledger, muttering about portal chemistry. The king basked in it all, strutting the dais like a conductor. Games, duels, wagers and wonders. What began as a quirk of ink has become the pulse of our reef. Every loop, every color, every cheer builds us higher. The queen brushed against him, smiling at his theatrical fire. Her turquoise glow steadied his crimson blaze, affection woven even into showmanship. Grandpa Fury alone stood stiff, arms crossed. The crowd roared, the lights flashed, the royals nearly glowed with pride, but his jaw barely twitched. Humph, he rumbled. Seen faster races at the county fair. Paint some rings on a pig pen, same thing. The royals faltered for a moment, their glow dimming at his words. The laughter of the crowd thinned into nervous ripples. And just like that, the tension peaked, setting the stage for his eventual break. Grandpa Fury strolled with his hands clasped behind his back, inspecting the stadium like a principal on patrol. The arena thrummed around them. Jellyfolk shooting through glowing ink rings like fireworks, ants clambering ceilings with acrobat precision, the crowd flashing scandal red and awe blue as bets and brags filled the air. The royals rose to the central dais, their glow settling into something calm, unreadable. The queen's voice carried, soft but heavy. Open quote, "If the heroes of this city do not wish our folk here, perhaps we should find a reef that does." Close quote. Fury's head tilted ever so slightly. The king added, more firmly, his glow flaring red at the edges. Open quote, "We could leave this very minute if we are unwelcome." Close quote. That did it. Fury snapped forward, eyes blazing, his voice cut like thunder. "Wait, did you just say find another reef?" The royals blinked. The crowd stilled. Fury jabbed a finger toward them, beard bristling. "So let me get this completely straight. You're not testing my resolve? You mean to say you'd actually leave?" The king started to answer, but Fury barreled right over him, his tone flipping from anger to manic joy. "Oh my gods, you were serious. You were going to walk away. No, 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 no." His voice cracked into a roar. "I love it. All of it. The food, the paint fights, the weapons, the trade, the nightlife, everything. You don't get to take this away. Not now. Not ever. This isn't spectacle. This is culture. Ours now. Part of us." Aunt Glad sighed into her drink. Took him long enough. The royals flickered with unease, then softened as Fury's mania rolled on. He spun, arms wide, shouting to the stands. "You hear me? They're ours now. Every buffet, every duel, every ridiculous glowing nightclub. 24/7 means forever, not temporary." He slapped down a bet slip on the nearest counter that boots hammering coral. Before the ticket even printed, he was sprinting toward the banquet halls, roaring, "Forever buffet!" The plaza pulsed neon laughter as he vanished into the glow, leaving the royals exchanging a look that was equal parts bewildered and oddly charmed. Hook the royals only shrugged, as if Grandpa's buffet sprint were the most natural response they could expect from a surface dweller. With unshaken calm, the queen gestured toward a freshly painted ink ring gleaming on the stadium wall. Aunt Glad folded her arms, wine bubble orbiting lazily overhead. "Well, now that the Farsado ego trips are out of the way, perhaps you'll join us," she said dryly. "The Mirror Realm's got something better than races and buffets. I hear there are a few scientist sharks still waiting to apologize for trying to bleed you dry." Quite literally. The ring pulsed, filling with liquid light. The circle stretched into a flowing passage, the water itself beckoning like a curtain drawn aside. Stepping through, they emerged not into another plaza, but into the raw edge of the mirror realm, the campsite where their journey began. The great waterfall poured endlessly into the forming ocean below, its force cooling the black rivers of lava that once threatened to consume everything. Steam and mist rose in drifting curtains, shot through with flashes of molten orange and deep-sea blue. It felt alive, half-built, as if the ocean itself was still choosing its shape. The ink portal closed behind them with a soft ripple, and for the first time the heroes saw how far the Jellyfolk's reach now extended. Even here, bridging realms with glowing water rings. Trade would flow freer than currents, but so would grudges. And waiting somewhere in the mist, Grandpa Fury's muffled voice echoed back through the portal, still bellowing from inside the buffet. About time! Took him long enough to serve something worth fighting for. The crowd laughed. Never mind that he was underwater and couldn't possibly see the birds that were about to arrive. The family froze as the air shifted. Man, this episode's long, Riot muttered, tugging at his damp robe. Calm smirked. Yeah, that's why it's now episodes 7 and 8. Riot blinked. Wait, you can't just do that. Hat Guy just did. Damn. Aunt Glad rolled her eyes. Like, subscribe. Calm crossed her arms. So no boss fight? 3 episodes in and all we've faced are scared scientist sharks? Flap, flap, flap. The sound cracked across the mist. Each wing beat shimmered rainbow, sparks painting the sky like watercolors bleeding across canvas. Oh, Riot groaned. You jinxed us again. The wings unfurled fully, blotting out the mist with rainbow light. A shadow moved inside the radiance, something vast, something new, something ready to step from the birdbath into war. The villain had arrived.